Okay, friends, we're live. It's good to see you on this Monday afternoon for CFLW, the show. Oh, my goodness. Let some folks come in, but obviously we've got a lot of heat to talk about. It is unbelievable. I just realized, by the way, the thumbnail hadn't updated. So I jumped back in and I updated the thumbnail on the YouTube channel. So hopefully that will update to the correct date. It is Monday, July the 28th. Welcome to the live show. CFLW, the show, is sponsored by the Lean Law Firm of Central Florida. They are logo on the bottom of your screen, your hometown homeowners insurance attorneys. It is storm season, friends. You have a storm in your area, get any kind of damage, wind, hail, hurricane, have a burst pipe. They can walk you through every step of the insurance claim process. They do offer free consultation and policy review, so you have nothing to lose. You want an advocate on your side, someone who supports the channel, go to leanonmelaw.com if you would like more information. How are you guys doing today? The heat is outrageous. Therese, how you doing? 92 in Kissimmee, which is going to be one of the coolest numbers that we see at 1 o'clock. Jesse of the house, 94. That heat index at 110. Spring Hill, hey Farrah, how you doing? Hey Spirit Wolf, 96 degrees outside. First of all, thank you for coming in. Thanks for supporting the channel. We're obviously going to talk about the heat we saw this weekend. We're going to talk about the heat that we're going to be seeing the next couple of days and when we're going to start to see a little bit of a pattern change to hopefully break some of this heat, because this has not only been some record highs that we've had across the area, this is some all-time record heat. If you guys were unaware, Tampa yesterday hit 100 degrees for the first time in recorded history. Their records go back 135 years. Back to 1890, and they had never had a 100-degree day in Tampa until yesterday. They had 99 several times in the history, but this is the hottest that we had ever been in a 135-year stretch in Tampa. We will more than likely have a few more areas hit the triple digits again for today. Not only do we have heat advisories, but we have extreme heat warnings for some of our area. Again, you have to get to a very high threshold in Florida to have heat advisories issued, right? The Weather Service offices don't like to issue these heat advisories each and every day because if the criteria is too low, they'd be firing them off for the entire summer. So their threshold is high here in Florida. But when they issue an extreme heat warning, that means that we've blown the cap off of what it's going to feel like outside in some areas, all right? Now that most of you are joined in, I appreciate it. So let's just look at these current temperatures. I wish I could tell you this is the feels like number, but these are actual air temperatures across their area at the 1 o'clock hour. So Gainesville in at 97. Let me do one more thing real quickly as well here. Okay, it is. Just want to make sure that we had all the data on that we possibly could. Ocala 95, Inverness 97, Leesburg 93, the Spring Hill area 97, Zephyr Hills 95 towards Temple Terrace, Brandon and Sefner and Dover and Plant City 97. You've got 97 near Largo and Pinellas Park, 90 at St. Pete. Even with a bit of a breeze on shore, you have a 90-degree temperature right now in St. Pete and the southern sides of Tampa. Bradenton, Sarasota in at 90, and again, inland locations, it's just roasting. 97 in Lakeland right now, 93 Kissimmee, 93 in MCO, but downtown Orlando is in at 97, joining Sanford in at that number. Even in Brevard County, Melbourne, Palm Bay, 93, Satellite Beach, 91, the Cape, 93, Port St. John, Sharps, 97, DeLand, DeLeon Springs, 93, Edgewater, 93, including New Smyrna Beach, Daytona, 95, Ormond Beach, 93, St. Augustine, 93, and if you want to believe it, this is where the extreme heat warning is, by the way. Jacksonville right now, this sensor out west, this METAR site, is reporting an actual air temperature of 102 at the hour. And we have a couple of others in the upper 90s, so it's not out of the question that that is an actual correct number. Let's factor in the humidity. So this is what the heat index feels like. This is what, when you step outside, you need to be prepared for, and it's still just 1 o'clock. Again, in Jacksonville, most areas 105 to 110, but that one sensor is pinging 117. It feels like 105 in St. Augustine, 107 in Gainesville, 110 in Ormond Beach, 107 in Daytona, 114 in New Smyrna, 103 in DeLand, 110 in Sanford and in downtown Orlando, MCO 103. 105-ish or higher in a couple of spots in Brevard County, Leesburg at 105. Actually, some of the worst numbers right now are out west. Feels like 112 right now in Inverness and Citrus County. Downtown Tampa, it feels like 117, and it feels like 119 again in Largo Pinellas Park. It's outrageous. Let me do this real quickly as well. So I'm going to show you guys, let me pick out to this perspective and then switch over to the advisories. But I got to put a big caveat on this, okay? My system, as you guys know, is a really great system. There are a couple of advisories or warnings that are very rare that weather service offices will put out that aren't national kinds of advisories or warnings that my system has a hard time picking up on. All right, so what you're looking at are heat advisories, right? That is something that can be issued nationwide. But the Jacksonville Weather Service office, and you notice that it's blank up here, they've actually issued what they call an extreme heat warning. All right, and I apologize that my system isn't picking it up, but again, it's not a nationwide advisory that can be issued, and sometimes it struggles with that. But I do want to talk about this real quickly because it does include, you know, St. Johns County. It includes the interior sections of Flagler County and Putnam County, and so some folks who might be viewing from those areas. So the extreme heat warning is in effect until 7 p.m. today. And then there's another extreme heat watch for tomorrow, which could be elevated to an extreme heat warning. It's basically one category up from a heat advisory, but they've got heat index values up to 113 with this warning. But we already know from a couple of spots that we've already hit that or maybe even gone slightly above. The bottom line is this, it's about as dangerous of a situation if you need to be outdoors for any length of time in the afternoon hours here, right? It's just that kind of situation. I'll put back on the current feels like temperatures here. So again, you know, you're looking at this area with your extreme heat warning up to potentially 113 degrees, but we already have a couple of spots here. Look, even this site, 99 degrees with a dew point of 72, all right? And again, the rest of our area is under a heat advisory. So let me give you the details on that. Now, there is a couple of different things. So you have, let's break this down. You have a heat advisory, right? That's in effect until tonight, and it includes all of Central Florida, but they've broken it up by zone. So you've got Volusia, Lake Orange, and Seminole in this one. And it's interesting because the Melbourne Weather Service office is talking about a heat advisory up to 112 and then an extreme heat watch for up to 115. So if they went by Jacksonville's standards, they would have already issued an extreme heat warning. That's why I'm saying it is forecast office dependent and how they want to derive how they issue these. So again, you know, extreme heat warning up here, but an extreme heat watch is currently in effect as well. So again, the extreme heat watch until 7 o'clock, Volusia, Lake, Seminole, Orange counties, into Citrus County in the north and west. Again, you've got heat advisory, extreme heat watch 112 to 114. And it's really going to be about the same scenario where these weather service offices, of course, out west, it's the Tampa Ruskin office that services these areas. They're mainly going to go effect until 7 o'clock tonight, right? So this one here, let's go a little bit farther south, actually into Hillsborough and Pinellas counties. Let's look at this one. These are all heat advisories, so not a heat watch, but still up to 113. Again, West Central Florida. They don't even break it down by county there. And then towards the Brevard County area, Brevard, Okeechobee, Osceola, heat advisories up to 112. You get the idea. It's stinking hot regardless, but I just wanted to break down those situations. Again, yeah, Blue Goose, it's gray, but there's a different scenario. It's gray because my system sometimes has a hard time picking up warnings and advisories that aren't nationwide. There are some that are only going to be specified by certain weather service offices, and extreme heat warning is one of those. So I know that the maker of this system is aware of that and is kind of working on it, but it's hard because it's picking up nationwide zone forecasts, if you will. But the interesting thing about it is it might be gray, but this is exactly where the extreme heat warning is. So at least we can delineate that, right? It's Jacksonville's forecast area, southeast Georgia, northeast sides of Florida. So basically, if you're in the gray, you're under the extreme heat warning. I think at least it's easy to tell because when I zoom out, you can clearly see that a lot of the southeast is in that. And look, guys, it's not just us. I mean, they're baking all the way into the western Great Lakes, the upper Midwest, the big cities of the Northeast, all under some kinds of heat advisories. This dome that is just continuing to provide us crazy kind of heat is situated right over us. Yeah, Blue Goose 111, no doubt about it. Yep, 98 feels like 112. Sadly, that is a very common number. Orlando downtown, if I can go with that, 97 with a dew point of 75. That's why it feels like it's 110. All right, so we've talked about the heat. First of all, obviously, I can't stress enough, if you don't need to be outdoors, don't be outdoors. If you can avoid the midday sun, avoid the midday sun. Encourage the kids not to go outside unless they're getting in the pool or you guys are heading to a splash pad or something like that. Anyone who's elderly, make sure that you check on them, make sure that they're not going out and trying to do some gardening here in the afternoon hours. This is really dangerous heat. Like, this is a serious situation. I'm a Florida native, and I got to tell you something. It's really interesting. I'm a Florida native, grew up here, went to college here, and then for the first 15 years of my career, worked across different parts of the country, came back here in 2013, and I felt a difference in the heat. Even then, maybe it's because I was getting a little bit older, but it felt different than being a kid and growing up, and especially the last several years. And I have friends who I grew up with in Crystal River. They don't live here, but they'll come back from time to time to visit family or whatever, and we'll get together. And I'm telling you, to a T, those who I have seen in the summertime go, Rusty, it's a different kind of heat these days. I don't know if I can tolerate it. And the numbers bear it out. Again, if you're just tuning in, Tampa for the first time ever, and I mean, I'm not talking about this year, I'm not talking about, in the short term, I'm talking about in recorded history, Tampa had their first 100-degree afternoon yesterday. Their recorded history goes back to 1890. Yes, it's not the longest frame of time, right, as far as weather records go. You go in the Northeast, you've got weather records that go back to the early 1800s, but you're still looking at a 135-year history where Tampa had never had a 100-degree day, and they had it yesterday. Hey, Mambo Blast, toasty here in Winter Garden. I hear you, man. Yeah, it is. It's definitely, there's a feel to it, right? So, look, it's the situation we're in. So now we're going to talk about the overall pattern and how it's going to evolve in the coming days. Why did I do that? I didn't mean to do that. Here's what I meant to do. I want to swing over to our live cameras. Let's check those out, right? Hey, look, if we're going to have a hot day, we're going to check out our live cameras. Beautiful shot, Winter Garden. Listen, is there an opportunity for a few storms today? Yes. Is it going to be very widespread? No. Are there going to be a couple of areas that have a little bit better chance than others? Absolutely. We'll get into that. But you notice that on the camera from Winter Garden, there's really not a lot of vertical development to the clouds. We still have a little bit of Saharan air. The atmosphere is not as dry, but there's not a lot of lift still. And we still have a lot of subsidence or sinking air. Okay, so it's a beautiful blue sky. We're dispersing the thin layer of Saharan dust, Saharan air layer that was into place, but we still have a huge dome of high pressure over us, which is keeping things kind of, putting the lid on a lot of thunderstorm activity. We're going to have to get some concentrated sea breeze interactions to try and promote some isolated, localized storms for today, but that is going to be few and far between. Again, situation is there's a little bit more cloud coverage today than yesterday in Conway, right? It's a beautiful shot. We're looking east here from the Lake Conway area and southeast of downtown Orlando. But again, not a lot of vertical development, a lot of fair weather clouds more than anything. And another beautiful shot here again from the attractions area. My thoughts are out for those who want to enjoy the attractions for today. My thoughts are out for those who work at the attractions or any outside workers. It's a dangerous situation. Hopefully the outside workers know how to prepare for this, but it's up a level today when you have these heat advisories, these extreme heat watches, and these extreme heat warnings. But again, sunny afternoon, but not a great scenario with the temperatures. So let's kind of break down what's going on here. And by the way, we'll go city by city with some forecasts. I want to talk to you guys about the tropics. We're getting closer to August 1st. we're getting closer to that time of the year where things get a little bit more interesting here in Florida as a potential. All right. Now, this is kind of just the broad view. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit here. And apparently I tried to print that screen. Gotta love computers sometimes. All right, look, the big Bermuda high, that big dome of high pressure, is still concentrated and has nudged deep into the southeast, okay? That's basically where you see no winds there. What's very interesting is there's this little mid-level scenario here. You can see almost just a little bit of a twist along this trough line. That's nothing, but it always very interesting when you see this high resolution visible satellite imagery, some of the nuances that you can pick up. But the bottom line is that there's not a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. The steering currents are awfully weak, okay? Now, today, if we're going to try and get a thunderstorm, it might be in western areas or interior sections, but there's not a lot. Ultimately, this high is going to kind of recede back east, and that will allow winds to pick up a little bit more out of the south. That should allow the East Coast sea breeze to begin to initiate and drive some thunderstorms back inland into western areas beginning tomorrow, but especially as we get into Wednesday and Thursday. This is still going to be, in my opinion, at least as hot as yesterday today, okay? Potentially even hotter in a couple of spots. It's not going to be much better for tomorrow, but eventually this scenario has to break down and we have to have better chances for showers and storms, okay? Now, Storm Prediction Center risk for today. Look, they've put us under the general thunderstorm possibility, except in southeast areas again, because they're just going to be a little bit of a march with the East Coast. And okay, just want to make sure it wasn't something behind my back there. Again, it's really, really low. What I do want to point out real quickly, by the way, because I always like to talk about really interesting weather, is there is a very dangerous situation developing right now in the Dakotas and the portions of Minnesota with a derecho event or a strong straight line wind event. These are your current wind gusts right now. They don't look outrageous yet, but ultimately some of these storms that are developing here and will be pushing into this area could produce winds between 75 and 100 miles an hour. Strong straight line winds. That's even outside of any potential tornadic activity. That's why there's that moderate risk, which again is it's a 4 out of 5 on the scale from the Storm Prediction Center. It's darn rare in late July. If we're going to get it, actually is in the Western Great Lakes or the upper Midwest to get this kind of a scenario. But I just wanted to point that out, that there is a very dangerous wind event developing here in those areas. Now, again, we're desperate for some rain to cool things off. It's not going to happen in the shorter term, but let's break down what I do expect. So we'll go over to the HRRR model. First of all, I'll zoom back in. Bring up the HRRR model, high resolution rapid refresh. And by the way, before I do that, let me just jump back into the chat. Make sure I'm not missing anything. Everyone's talking about the heat. I'm right there with you. I mean, it was the weekend, and it was like, how unpleasant was it to even think about being outside? It was that kind of rough. And again, for those who had to be outside, I really do feel for you. It's a tough scenario right now. So let me break down what's going to be happening over the next couple of days. We'll look at the HRRR model, then we'll pick it up with the GFS. Again, it's not going to be completely dry for today. By the way, I actually did have a brief shower yesterday for about 3 minutes. And it was the only shower in Central Florida, and we did pick up a couple rumbles of thunder. So I do want to highlight that there was the isolated storm that broke this cap, that broke that drier air layer, right? And, it will be the beginning of a trend, but it's going to be slow to evolve the next couple of days. Really not until about Wednesday am I expecting thunderstorm chances to try and improve in a lot of spots. But I do want to point out that it's not going to be completely dry here, but the heat is still the biggest story. And look, it's not like that shower really helped the heat in any way, shape, or form. All right, so we'll start it off. This is 3 o'clock today. I want you to notice that the HRRR model tries to develop a couple of isolated storms across I-4. It's a possibility. Look, when you have this kind of heat energy, right, if you can break that cap, if you can get enough lift to come through that inversion layer and bust that, you can have fairly rapid, intense storms developing in a hurry. all right? But they tend to be very localized and isolated when they do so. So you could get an intense storm, but many of us won't, all right? And again, kind of trying to drift off towards the west. Like if anything, the East Coast sea breeze is a little bit more active for today, but not much. You know, here's 5, here's 6 o'clock. I will favor Orlando west today, right? So Orlando and the villages and Ocala and Crystal River and Inverness and Spring Hill and my friends and the rest of Pasco and Hernando counties, portions of Polk, Hillsborough, Pinellas, Manatee, and Sarasota counties. These are the areas with the best chance for a storm today. It'd be interesting if they could actually line up like that, because if they did, you know, we could have a stronger storm here or there. As we get towards 9 o'clock, they fade away. But again, relatively speaking, for a summer afternoon, it's few and far between. And I hate to tell you, if you live across I-95, I don't see it materializing for today. I don't see it materializing overall the next couple of days. We'll swing it over to tomorrow, right? Trying to, again, develop a couple of storms. Now, certainly feel like we're going to have a better chance for rain along the west coast tomorrow. I-75, US 19 corridors. And you can see that developing here, maybe even as early as 1 or 2 o'clock. And again, some of these storms could be very stout where they locally develop. So if you live in Pinellas or Hillsborough counties, you know, the St. Pete, Tampa, greater areas, keep an eye out for that. Same situation back down to Sarasota, even all the way down towards the Venice, Port Charlotte areas as well. And again, an isolated thunderstorm here in the Orlando area. Few and far between, but you notice that when the herd develops them, you got some high reflectivity here and the opportunity for some stronger, intense storms. Gusty winds would be the primary threat, all right? Tomorrow afternoon, slightly better coverage. Not much better, but slightly better, kind of in that 20 to 30% range in most spots, a couple of up to 40. Again, not along I-95. I hate to tell you this, but with that south wind picking back up, a little bit more out of the southeast from time to time, it should nudge these storms farther west than anything, at least in the shorter term. Here's 5 o'clock tomorrow and 6. And look, could there be a rogue shower that hits the coastline up towards Jacksonville and St. Augustine farther north? Yes. I'll show you just a little bit broader perspective. Look, we're moistening things up. We're beginning to turn the corner tomorrow, thank goodness, right? But still, do not be shocked if through tomorrow night, you don't get any more rain. But there'll be a few more out there. And then this is Wednesday morning. Now, if I show you the broader perspective here and just loop the HER model up throughout the entire time, you'll start to see that we pick up a little bit more intensity here. This begins to swing east, and it just allows a little bit more flow to come back down. And then your low-level winds out of the southwest should provide a little bit more convergence. We're finally breaking down the ridge. We're breaking down the ingredients that are keeping us as dry and as hot as they've been. Yeah, what a nightmare to be lining up 1 hour plus for theme parks. I know, right? I know. Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough thought. I mean, water sales have to be through the roof as they should be, no doubt about it. So that's kind of the overall pattern over the next couple of days. Now let's get into the GFS. So we'll pick up the model here on the GFS, and we'll swing over, just make sure this is right. So we'll start on Wednesday morning. And I'll just go out to Friday. How does that sound? Which should be what? 28th, 29th, 30th, the 1st, right? If I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. Today's the 28th, 29th, 30th. 30 days, that's September. There's 31 in July, right? The 1st. Let me tell you something, man. I'm doing so many things right now. I can't keep up with the calendar. But yeah, we'll go out to Friday with this and have a laugh on me. You can see from the GFS that we're breaking it down little by little. Rain chances should begin to improve some. You know, again, if you live along the East Coast, you're not going to have as much rain over the next couple of days, but hopefully a little bit more improved. And I do expect there to be a little bit more rain than what the GFS is showing. I think it's a little too paltry. I could also show you guys the NAM. It's another model. Yep, we do have Iona out in the Pacific. For those who like to keep tabs. We'll start up for right now. Hey Noah, how you doing? Freeport's getting some storms. And of course, Noah, I got you covered on the Media Mundo channel. I'll be doing that video a little bit later in the day. But yeah, a little bit more moisture there, a little bit more localized. But I appreciate that, Noah. Thanks for letting me know. Bob bless. I played a round of golf in Vegas last year, and the heat advisory I played yesterday at ours. Well, yeah, it's how humid the air is. I mean, there is a dryness to the air out in Vegas, and my best friend lives in Phoenix, and I've been out there in August when it legitimately is 115 degrees, but the dew point is so low that your relative humidity is in the single digits. It feels like a convection oven, and it actually catches you off guard. At least here in Florida, you know, there's some fatigue factor to being outside, you know, and you realize that when you stop sweating, you're probably in trouble. Out there, you don't sweat. So it's harder to realize the exertion on the body that the heat is causing you. And not that I ever got close to it, but you know, you stepped outside in that 115 degree air with the 9% relative humidity, and it just felt like you had stepped into an oven, and it was hitting you in all directions. It was absolutely crazy. You know, but there is a difference. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, August 1st is Friday. Thanks. Thank you, Farrah, for letting me know that and or reminding everyone. No, not really, Fiona. You know, the mechanics of what's happening in the oceans and what's happening inland is very different. You know, it takes a lot longer for water temperatures to warm compared to land temperatures, which is one reason why our peak hurricane season is into late August and early September and even into October, because water temperatures are still warming even after we've hit the peak of our actual air temperature at that time of the year. We start falling off, but water temperatures are still holding that latent heat better. So when you have a few afternoons, now it might warm up coastal waters slightly because of the shallower nature to things, but overall the depth of water and the quality, you know, that a tropical system would need is not going to be very highly impacted by having extreme heat over the last couple of days. All right, so this is just the NAM model. I just wanted to give you guys another idea of kind of what some of the models are beginning to bake up here. And again, you know, kind of discounting the GFS a little bit here, but you can see as we get into tomorrow, there's a little bit more activity compared to today. And then even into Wednesday, we're trying to throw a few more storms. Now the NAM is trying to push some of these storms back towards the East Coast. I don't know, man. I don't know, given the overall flow of things, I think if you catch a shower through Wednesday afternoon along I-95 or the beaches, consider yourselves quite lucky. I don't see it happening for the most part. All right, so let's break down your city by city forecast, and then I want to talk about the tropics real quick as well. So here we go. Orlando forecast looks like this. Again, some of the higher rain chances here across Central Florida will be across Orange County, you know, the interior sections, including I-4, 40% chance for storms tomorrow, 50 Wednesday, Thursday. Now again, there will be some areas that will not get any rain in Orange County. And look at this heat. I've got an actual air temperature in Orlando of 99 degrees tomorrow. It is not out of the question that we hit 100. These numbers are just below record highs in Orlando. Close, but just below record highs. And then we might fall off a couple of degrees. 97 Wednesday, 96 on Thursday. Feels like temperatures the next couple of afternoons will at least be at 110, but could be slightly higher. And again, morning lows, you don't get a lot of relief. Upper 70s, 79 the morning low in Orlando on Wednesday and then on Thursday. In Tampa, again, you saw what was happening tomorrow on the HERM model, so I put in a better chance for storms to try and break that heat. Still getting up to 97 tomorrow. Still, it feels like temperature of 110, but at least there's a better chance for storms around the greater Tampa, St. Petersburg area, including Bradenton and Sarasota and up the coastline as well. So it's a 60% chance, 97 the daytime high. Then some of the activity might drift a little bit more inland overall. So the rain chance actually comes down a bit Wednesday and Thursday, 50 Wednesday, 40 on Thursday, still darn hot, still more than likely some kinds of heat advisories through Wednesday. Hopefully slightly cooler. And again, you can't get much hotter here in Central Florida than what we've had, but slightly cooler on Thursday, back down to 95. No relief in the morning. The morning low in Tampa, the next couple, could be in the lower 80s. And there is an opportunity that Tampa will break their all-time warmest lows, meaning that, you know, it was the warmest morning low for these dates, especially if they stay at 81 degrees for actual morning lows. We can talk about that on Friday's show. Sanford, again, 40 tomorrow, 50 Wednesday, Thursday, scattered thunderstorms, trying to cool things off. For the most part, though, it's still about the heat. 111 a feels like temperature tomorrow, 110 on Wednesday, 99 the air temperature. Could some of Seminole County sneak in right around 100? They could. By the way, just so you guys are clear, the photos behind me, those are all city specific. You're looking at an aerial shot of Lake Monroe there in Sanford. So any of these forecast graphics I have, there is some kind of local component to the photo that you see. Just thought it'd be a little touch, a little nice touch for you, right? Maybe you guys recognize some of the landmarks there in some of the photos. And then on over to my friends in Titusville. Again, 20% chance tomorrow, and I feel like I'm being generous when I do that. Now, the East Coast sea breeze nudges on shore, right? So maybe we stay around 105 for the feels like temperature tomorrow. If you want to cool off, I guess head to the Brevard County coastline, but I wouldn't be going outdoors. Still mainly dry, 95. Trying to get a few isolated thunderstorms to develop Wednesday, Thursday. So again, I feel generous with the 40 on Wednesday and Thursday, but hopefully we get there. Still expecting feels like temperatures to be in the triple digits in places like Titusville and even Satellite Beach and Cocoa and O'Galley and Grant Valkyria and the Mico Barefoot Bay Area through Thursday afternoon. Falling a bit, 93 the actual air temperature on Thursday. Morning lows that will be in the upper 70s. Pop-up shower form southwest. Yeah, absolutely crazy. Hey, Cole, how you doing, man? You get a little pop-up shower right now? Let's see here. Hey, I would love it if we can get a little bit more of that as well. So let me fire this up real fast. I didn't actually have... Fire up the old NextRad here. We're talking about like right here. We're trying to get a little bit to develop across 19, aren't we? Here's a little shower right over Dunedin in Safety Harbor and Clearwater. It's good. It's good that we're trying to break it up a little bit there. Again, that's, excuse me, that's a live look from the Tampa radar. You can see there's a little boundary right here, right? That's what that little green line is. And right along US 19, a couple of showers. Now notice that the movement though is probably going to try and drift them potentially back offshore. So I'm not sure how much more inland they're going to go. But here in Pinellas County, we actually have had a couple of showers pop up. No lightning out of any of this as of yet, but they are just starting to get going. So Bay Pines and Seminole and Little Largo area on over towards Clearwater. And, you know, potentially this little boundary could even slip into Citrus County where, you know, places like Homosassa Springs and Crystal River could have a light shower as well. So there you go. Hey, we're trying to break it right now. All right. And by the way, NOAA was talking about the storms there in Grand Bahama. There you go. Even the Tampa radar can pick those up. It would be even a more impressive shot from Melbourne. So there you go. Northwest Bahamas is pretty active right now. Pretty good thunderstorms there. So this is the Melbourne radar. So we're shooting across the state to see these scattered showers that develop right across 19, you know, portions of Hernando and Pasco and Pinellas counties. But there you go. All right. So the last thing I want to do in the live stream is this real quickly. I'm going to take it all the way out here. And by the way, this is another invest area here in Iona, and the East Pacific is absolutely activated right now. But we are going to start to get a little bit better opportunity for some tropical interests as we get to the beginning of August. All right. Now, take me 1 second just to load all this back up. I'm going to fire this off till August 4th. It's not that far away. Now look, friends, this time of the year, the main development region of the Atlantic starts to get more active. The Saharan air layer is dispersing quicker. It's not traversing the Atlantic basin like it has been the last couple of months. And the waves coming off the West African coast are getting stronger and stronger. So climatologically, this is right on time where I start keeping a much closer eye on the main development region, or the MDR of the Atlantic basin, and how this could evolve, right? We also are still seeing stalled out boundaries coming off of our East Coast and into the Eastern Gulf, which could still promote some kinds of spin, right? So the combination of these two look to provide a little bit better opportunity for a few tropical systems to develop closer to Florida as we get towards the latter part of the first week of August, right? Now, I've been monitoring very closely on the Media Mundo channels these waves developing east of the Lesser Antilles and what they ultimately might do. The European and the GFS models have really bobbled back and forth with trying to strengthen these. And you can see one here in the GFS that kind of sneaks into the Leeward Islands as we get towards the 3rd and the 4th. But it's really actually been the GFS model that has been weaker with these systems compared to the European model. But what it ends up ultimately doing is taking some of these waves that are developing here, these disturbances, and as they come to the north, or excuse me, to the west, they do gain enough north latitude where instead of going into the Caribbean, they actually get into the western Atlantic, kind of east of Turks and Caicos and east of the Bahamas. And when you factor those waves coming in with, again, the opportunity for some kind of a boundary kind of setting up here off of the coast of the Carolinas, and you can ultimately see that spin right here. I think we're going to be monitoring this area east of us starting around August 1st, August 2nd, August 3rd, something like that, for potential, at least, interest. I don't even want to say potential tropical development, but it's an area where the models the last several days have heightened their signal. Let's put it to you that way. This is what it looks like on the European model, okay? So you can notice the time on the right-hand side of your screen. I'm going to step over here, right? You start to see as we get deeper into August, and I let this run all the way to the 12th. Now, again, we don't want to point out any one thing. I'm going to walk back over to this side, actually. But as we get towards the end of the first week of August, you're going to start to see the ensemble members of the European begin to develop more tropical systems, either in the western side of the Atlantic or somewhere in the Northwest Caribbean or even in the Eastern Gulf. The signals are just going up, but it's that time of the year, right? So this is an area that I'll be monitoring very closely. There is no threat whatsoever at any point in time, but you know, when we can have a conversation like this, you know, week, 10 days out, we can have that conversation. And again, it's something that I'm simply going to be monitoring, but it wouldn't shock me if we start to see a little bit more of these disturbances and these waves staying more organized as you get closer to the United States East Coast towards the end of August. Is that clear? Hope that answers that as far as tropics go. But again, we're sneaking into the beginning of August here. Time to kind of wrap that up. Hey, Garrett, how you doing, man? Oh, man, Garrett, it is hot everywhere, my friend. It is absolutely gross. Again, real quickly here, guys. Heat advisories for all of Central Florida. Feels like temperatures up to 115 in a couple of spots. Where we have the gray area, even though my system isn't picking up on it, that's an excessive heat warning for the Jacksonville, St. Augustine area, but they've also gone to 115 there as well. So, you know, kind of regardless of whether you're under the heat advisory, the extreme heat warning, or the extreme heat watch, you know, the Weather Service offices are talking about feels like temperatures that would be approaching 115. Let's take a look at the, there's that heat advisory right now for Volusia Lake, Orange, and Seminole. Just as an example, again, heat index values up to 112, the extreme heat watch with the heat index values of 110 to 115. Not fantastic. Current temperatures, again, one more time, for those who are just tuning in, this is what we've been talking a lot about right now. Current temperatures, low, mid, upper 90s. It's only cooling down here because they're getting a couple of thunderstorms near St. Pete. Feels like temperatures, outrageously hot. Almost everyone, looks like everyone now on the map, now we're a little bit deeper into the 1 o'clock hour, is above 100 for feels like temperature. But The only way that you're probably not going to go above 110 today is either you live on the immediate East Coast or you get a thunderstorm to cool you off before you get to about 4 o'clock. Unbelievable stuff, friends. Does anyone have any specific questions about what's been going on across the area for today? If you don't, or if you do, please let me know in the comments section below here real quickly. But Jesse, I hope you get a little bit of that rain towards your area, but I think it's going to be very, very close in hugging the coastline. Yep. So as you saw in those advisories, you saw those extreme heat watches. If you're under a heat advisory today, or you're under an extreme heat watch and a warning right now, expect that to be reissued for tomorrow. I don't expect tomorrow afternoon to be any cooler than what we've seen today. All right. So just keep that in mind. If you still can avoid being outdoors over the next couple of afternoons, it is beneficial, I would suggest. Now, again, just real quickly to show you, here in the last little bit, we've had a couple of little isolated thunderstorms develop right across US 19. Boy, I hear you, man. We could all use it. Okay, so I think we're good for our live stream. First of all, I really do appreciate those who have tuned in for the live edition of this. Remember, this becomes a recorded video and is housed under the live tab of the CFLW YouTube channel. So if you're a regular live viewer during the 1 o'clock hour, but you missed it, you can always go back and watch this recorded version. You know, it's going to give you information over the next couple of days so you guys can stay weather aware. Of course, I do this generally Monday and Friday afternoons at 1 p.m. Please do remember that the show is sponsored by the Lean Law Firm of Central Florida. They are the channel sponsor of these live streams, and when I go live for the impactful weather, and they're going to be the sponsor for the rest of 2025. So please check out the Lean Law Firm. They're your hometown homeowners insurance attorneys. They offer free consultation and policy reviews, any kind of storm damage, they'll help you out. You've been in an auto accident, they can also help you that as well. They offer free consultation and policy reviews. leanonmelaw.com is the website. Obviously, if there's impactful storms developing over the next couple of days, I'll be monitoring the situation. If I need to come back on live and cover those storms, I certainly will. Please be very mindful of the heat that's going to be in play here across Central Florida the next couple of afternoons. Please stay weather aware. Avoid the outdoors in the afternoon hours if you can. If you have to, hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. And of course, if things cooperate and it's just about the heat rather than the storms, I'll see you guys live Friday at 1 o'clock for the next edition of CFLW The Show. On your way out, thanks so much for taking a quick second and liking this live stream. Liking, commenting, and subscribing really help to kick up the channel in YouTube's eyes, and they'll recommend this channel to those who don't even know we exist. So all those things, if you want to support the channel, it's a really simple, free way to do it. I appreciate those who take a quick second to do so. Again, thanks so much for liking. Thanks so much for tuning in, friends. Please, please, please stay safe. This is rough heat outside the next couple days. And again, I'll be monitoring the storm situation, and at least, if nothing else, I'll see you guys back next Friday at 1 o'clock for CFLW The Show. Take care, my friends.